So, hello everyone. This is Elaine Kalila here, and I have a special treat for you today. I am here with my soul sister, Christine Arylo. Hello, love.
Hi, love.
And I'm so honored. Christine and I have known each other for many years. We had the great fortune of sitting together in the very first circle that I was involved in when I first discovered the priestess path. And that was the 13 Moon Mystery School with our mentor, Ariel Spilsbury. And Christine and I got to sit in a circle for 13 months together and to really interface with each other in this deep dive that was way beyond our personalities. It was really about being with each other at an essence level. And I got to know Christine's work through that and to become one of her big fans and to be really honored to be a sister. And I want to share her with you today because I've been doing a lot of talking over the last few moons around this paradigm that we get stuck in between either being too much or not enough. Like this story that we have, the story that we as a collective, as the feminine have on the planet, that we're still recovering from, that lives within every single one of us. And I wanted to share Christine's work with you because not only is it incredibly innovative, very funny, but it's also very powerful work that is also very accessible. So I want to let you know that Christine has, I want to get the title right here, is just about to be launching a book in the world called Reform Your Inner Mean Girl, which I just love. 7 Steps to Stop Bullying Yourself and Start Loving Yourself. And she's a co-author along with Amy Alos of this book. And I know, Christine, how long have you been doing this work in the world now?
We actually founded Inner Mean Girl Reform School. You'll remember this in 2010 on Self-Love Day when actually Elaine was performed. You performed your belly dancing and movement and body tumbling at a big event that we had in Berkeley for Self-Love Day on February 13th, 2010. So that's been, gosh, now over 5 years that we've been teaching this work around the world.
And I know over the last 5 years, you've had the great fortune to work with up to 30,000 women, right, in this process.
Yeah, over 30,000 on 6 continents. So we joke that that penguins must not have inner mean girls because Antarctica is the only place we haven't found them. We found them everywhere else. Doesn't matter race, age, money, success. It's like common among all women. We have not met a woman who does not have, unfortunately, an inner mean girl.
I love it. So let's jump in because I want all of my people to know, all of my wonderful women to know, how they can access into this and what does it mean to start to reform your inner mean girl. So I think where we should start is just by talking about this archetype of the inner mean girl. Like, who is she? And I know you've been working with her for so many years. So I want to hear, who is she now? Who's the inner mean girl?
Well, there's actually 13 different types of inner mean girls, as it turns out, that we have found are specific to women. And it's a little bit different than like the inner critic or the saboteur or the gremlin, which kind of feels like this outside force that's like doing something to you. But the truth is, like, for us as women, what we found is that there are just these, at a deep spiritual level, there are places inside of us that have been affected by fear, that have been affected by shame, have been affected by feeling unworthy or unloved. And when we were little people, we didn't really know what to do with those things. Like, we didn't know how to, when we met someone's anger, or we felt afraid, or we were embarrassed, or we felt unloved. So what happens in that moment, when that occurs, is you create this part of yourself that sends a message up to you that says, I never want to have to experience that ever again. And that's the moment that your inner mean girl actually gets created. But most of us don't really know when they were created. We just have these feelings that continue to come up as we grow, like anxiety and worry and fear and shame, or we have the crazy negative thoughts inside of us that say, you're not enough, you should be doing more. Or we find that we just keep doing these self-sabotaging things like overworking, overgiving, overdoing, overcompensating, overthinking. And I found in my own life that that until I was able to actually create a relationship with those parts of myself, I was a victim to them. And so I actually found my first inner mean girl. The inner mean girl is kind of like she's like the Halloween costume, almost for fear and shame, and then you can relate to her, create a relationship to her. So I found my first one gosh, no, it was 2009 when my first book was released, Choosing Me Before We, whose book launch you were also at, Kalila. I haven't seen a theme here. We've done lots of self-love. She always comes and she dances. These amazing, beautiful dances with her, lovely hair. And it's interesting because I'm thinking about the comparison queen. Mine's name is Mean Patty. She has red hair, wears a smock, has these huge rulers. And before I met you, or actually it was after I met you through the priestess training, that she was totally reformed, because I had a pretty vicious comparison queen where my comparison queen would always compare me to women who were better at me in some way. And she had big rulers. So it's like Oprah, Barbara Walters, Marianne Williamson, or like when I met you, who's just like this beautiful like dancer and expressive self. And I was like, more of a repressed, self. I had to kind of come out from all of those things. But I had this inner, goddess who wanted to dance and all of that. And when I met you, thankfully, my comparison queen had been reformed. So what that meant is that instead of like comparing myself to Kalila when I met her in circle and being like, she's so tall and she's so thin and she has this beautiful hair and she wears these great clothes. I had transformed her into my talent scout. So her job was to find women to inspire me. So when I met you, I had already learned how to turn comparison into inspiration. And I remember being in circle and like looking at you, and you had some beautiful white pants on. Like you had this jewelry. You were just like, you were together and done. And I'm like, I'm so inspired to go out and like and find my expression of that, of the beautiful pants and the jewelry. And that was the thing I learned, was that when you compare yourself to somebody, what you see is actually already inside yourself. Mm. But because I knew it was Mean Patty and I had reformed her, that actually allowed me to find more of my self-expression, and then actually allowed me to connect to you, right? Instead of like being in circle and either, you becoming the bitch who's like skinny, right? Or the person who I can't talk to because I'm afraid because she's so beautiful. I was able to just be your friend and be like, hi, I'm a fairy. Are you a fairy? That's a fairy. Let's play. Let's be friends.
I love it. I love it. I love tracking our relationship over this period of time and remembering who I was then and who I am now. And it's so fascinating, because I have this is the news, is we all have these inner mean girls. And I think the brilliance of what you've done with this archetypal work is to give us a way into humanizing that inner mean girl, right? Like we can give her a name and we can get to know who she is. And ultimately the job is to love her and give her a new job, right? That's what you're talking about. And it's interesting, Christine, because just recently, it's like really in the last year or so, I would say, I've been really working with my inner mean girl. Her name is Harsh Harriet. And Harsh Harriet really believes in working hard. That's her raison d'etre. That's the reason she's here on the planet, is to work harder than everybody else, to be more in control than everybody else, to have to do it all on her own and know that basically she's the only one who can do it. She has a very uptight personality. Now, anyone who knows me from the outside in would never think that I have a Harsh Harriet, right? Because she's kind of hidden. But anyone who actually lives with me or is around me sees Harsh Harriet pushing me, making me do things, not letting me rest, right? And so I've had this comparison with you, which is basically Christine Arylo. Right? And you have to know this about Christine, is she's, as far as I'm concerned, she's just moving all over the world, and she's maybe working on, I don't know, she's maybe doing a retreat, or maybe she's just sitting by the ocean looking at the horizon line. But I've had this comparison that somehow your life is so much more in line with this flow and, with being kind and loving to yourself. And clearly I'm not loving enough, right? And it's so fascinating because, as you said it's like, this is how we as women undo ourselves, right? Is when we get into comparison with each other. Now, luckily, I've known that actually you're an inspiration for me because I look at the way you're living our life, or how I perceive it, and I know that lives inside of me. And so one of the big shifts that I've just made is I've given Harsh Harriet a new job, and I really am excited about this. And Harsh Harriet's job now is to be the systems strategist. She loves it. So she gets to sit back and look at all the systems and say, this needs to be better and this needs to work better. And I like it when this does this, but she doesn't get to rule the schedule. Mm-hmm. She's no longer in charge of the schedule, because she wasn't really good at scheduling, because she would just pack things back to back because she thought that was the way that, we needed to be in order to be a good person. So I love it when you bring it up. So I want you to tell us, what are some of the other of these 13 archetypes that you found within the inner mean girl? Like, who else have you found? Shows up all the time.
Well, you know, what's interesting about inner mean girls is that they're not all mean, but they're all pushy, you know, in their own way. They're definitely pushy, but they sometimes they mask themselves where they look like they're actually being good. So there's the good girl, which I don't actually happen to have a good girl, but Amy Ehlers, my co-partner, Inner Mean Girl Reform School, her inner mean girl negative Nellie is a total good girl. And the good girl is the one who, when you know that you need to say no to something, like you're at school and like they're like, who's going to be the room mom, or who's going to sign up to do this auction, or you're talking to a girlfriend and they're like, can you do this for me, or you know, you're thinking of something that you want to do and you want to serve, and you know that you have no room. There's no room on your plate. Your plate's already overflowing. You have no business, you know, saying yes. And your inner wisdom's like, you hear that the inner wisdom go, don't say yes, don't raise your hand, don't do it. And you don't do it. You know, and she's the one who makes you say yes when you say no. She's the one who makes you overgive, and because she's afraid that you're not going to be seen as a good friend, that you're not going to, she's the one who makes you say the nice thing versus actually delivering the loving truth. And she makes you sell yourself out oftentimes in sacrifice to serving other people.
Right.
Super common.
That's great. I just want to name, I wonder how many of y'all who are watching this have that version, because that's sneaky, right? It's like the inner good girl is actually part of this team, because she gets you to do things that you don't want to do and oversteps your boundaries. And it's all in the verses of being good, right? Looking good, being
yes. I'm being the good person. I'm being the good mom. I'm being the good mom. I'm sacrificing myself. I'm being the, you know, it's like, that's what we do. And there's another one that I think shows up a lot for those of us that are like, we're in service, right? We want to see good things happen in the world. And we call it the starving artist, the spiritual guru. So basically she's the martyr. And it's the one who basically tells you that you have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice for your cause. You have to sacrifice, you know, to be a spiritual person. You have to, you know, it's like, she's the one, like, at the worst, she's like, money is evil, or if you make too much money, right, then you're not in integrity, or, you know, you won't have the same friends anymore. Don't be too successful. And she makes you sacrifice yourself and what you need, like your basic physical needs. You know, I love living in beautiful places. I love having the resources to be able to create beautiful temples. Like, that's actually really important to me. It helps me serve more people. I don't actually happen to have this archetype, thankfully, but she's very present. You know, for me, it's like, the more I am supported physically, the more I know I can give. But your inner mean girl, if you have a martyr, she's like, she's got, you know, she's the opposite. And so there's 13 different types, and we have a quiz that people can take too to actually identify them. There's one in the book. It's the first step, which is the first step, 7 steps. First step, meet your inner mean girl. But you can also take it online and as well at innermeangirlquiz.com, and that will, or I don't clear if you're going to have it linked up to the
I'll put that, it'll be in this email that you'll be
cool. In the email. So you can go, and so take the quiz. It's super fun. It's super fast. And clearly you take it too. And then you gotta tell me which ones and what because it scores you on all 13. Oh, and I actually took it myself because I have 5 inner mean girls. We have all of them, but there's ones that are more present, and I've reformed 5. And so I'm like, I'm just going to take the quiz and see.
Okay, so let's talk about, what does it take to reform from your lensing? Like, how does that reform? I love, I mean, it's just such a great image, right? That you can reform these parts of yourself. So give me the first few steps to reforming an inner mean girl. We identify we've got one. So everybody's going to identify they've got one. What do we do?
Raise your hand. Everyone raise your hand. Go ahead. Raise your hand.
So I've got harsh Harriet.
Okay, we all have inner. It's okay if you don't know her name, but just raise your hand that you have an inner mean girl. So that's the first step. It's step 1. It's step 1 in the book. It's step 1 in the process. Just you need to meet her, identify her, know what her archetype is. And then it's like any relationship. You want to actually get to know this part of yourself and get curious about it. So one of the pieces that comes we do in step 2 is really getting to know what triggers her. Mm-hmm. So we have different hot spots, we call them, for inner mean girls. So for some of you, your inner mean girls might show up in your love life. For others of you, it might show up in your career. For others, it might show up in money. For others, it might show up with your body. You know, there's common hotspots. There's like 7 or 8 common hotspots. And so when you know what triggers her, that's good. Number 1 step. And then number 2 is getting to know her. And that second step is about is really getting to understand where she came from and why she's here. Actually, that's step 3, to really see what motivates her. Because the thing is, you want to get to the point where you're aware that she's on the scene. That's kind of the first piece. And so the way that we teach it and the way that I experience it is you always go to your body, because your body never lies, right? So you have, if you were to put your left hand out, right? So put your left hand out and imagine that your inner mean girl's on your left hand. We just have a little bell in the background. Here she is. Ding. I don't know if you can all hear that.
Orchestrate that.
Very well. Okay, so there's your inner mean girl. She's appeared on your left hand. And when she's broadcasting, so if you think of your body as a broadcasting tower, and you have a frequency that's coming, out of your body and is also running in your body. When she's on the scene, it's like if your body was tuned to a channel, we call it 88.9 FM, FEAR, fear. And this, that this is happening, like she's in your control tower here and here. When you feel fear, anxiety, stress, contraction, like in your jaw feels tight, you feel super anxious, you feel super nervous, you feel spacey. Like these are all physical signs that your inner mean girl has taken over the control tower. If you put your right hand out, you will actually notice that you have another force within you, which is your inner wisdom. And she broadcasts on 108.00 FM. And she's the station of loving truth. So when she's around, you feel grounded. You can feel a little nervous, like I'm going into the mystery. I don't really know what's going to happen, like we've all done. But you still feel a groundedness and a connectedness and a centeredness. And so this is like the biggest, the biggest challenge I see for women is being able to discern between these voices and these feelings and these differences, and then being able to actually shift the channel when you're under attack by your inner mean girl.
Right. Because this is my experience, and I'm sure this is probably relevant to all of us from, all the work that I've done for myself and with all the women that I'm in communication with and in community with is when we are on a specific channel. This is the challenge, I think. When we're on a specific channel, we are in that reality. I love this little ding dong. And that reality is real in the sense that that's the lens that we're looking through. So when the inner mean girl is here, whichever one it is, that's the lens through which we're looking, and everything in the external world has to appear to fit that story. So we will bend what we're seeing to fit that story, and then it becomes a lived reality. And so what you're really talking about is having a hook, having actually a very sweet, fun hook way of going, oh, that's my inner mean girl. Here she is. How can I change the channel right now? That reform process is really about, like you said, and I want to talk about this more. It's like, how do you give her a new job? Because that to me is brilliant. It's like the idea that we're not trying to get rid of her. We want to reallocate her to a new job description. So can you tell us, I want a little anecdote of how you managed to give your inner mean girl a new job, like this comparison patty or whatever she was doing.
So that is actually, so there's 7 steps that we go through in the book, and that's the process. The last step is giving your inner mean girl the new job, and so the reason it's the last step is because you can't just be like, okay, I have an inner mean girl, I'm just going to send her off to Bermuda, or I'm going to make her the trash collector, and just going to do it from a mental place. This is actually really, really deep work, but there's a way that the play actually brings it into a way that we can relate to it. And this is all, self-discovered by myself and using this on myself and then testing it with, we didn't even know this was going to work. Like in 2010, when we had Self-Love Day, Amy and I were like, let's teach this. We've done this, let's teach it. And we taught it to 65 women, and they had these crazy breakthroughs. And we were reading the things afterwards, and we were just crying. And we kept teaching it. And what we learned is that, you have to get the first step is really getting to understand your inner mean girl. You really do have to look at what's motivating you under the surface. So that's why for each archetype, we actually help you see what are the toxic habits that they do, what are the weapons they use, what are the big fat lies they do. Because when you become aware of something, you can actually change it, right? This is what we're talking about, right? You can't change something you have no consciousness of. So once you have awareness, like, oh my gosh, like I'm overworking. Oh, that's my inner mean girl. Like I'm not just a workaholic. There's something what's driving underneath that. And so like for me, for example, I have an achievement junkie. Her name is Move the Bar Belinda, and she's like the crazy mountain climber that's always on to the next mountain. So I have these high goals, and I like get to the top of the mountain. Like for example, I get a book published. It's not a lot of people get their first book published, right? I climbed the mountain. I've been working on this book, my first book, 4.5 years. I'm on top of the mountain. And I can celebrate for all of about, a second before my comparison queen. And the achievement junkie is like, well, now you need a website. Well, now you need to get on the media. Well, now you need to, and it's like, all of a sudden, it's like I'm already climbing the next mountain. And so for most of my life, that achievement junkie actually served me. I grew up in the south side of Chicago in a family that no one went to college. Most of my friends both my best friends got pregnant at the age of 16. Most of the guys that I was friends with became, drug addicts. Some went to jail. Like whenever I tell Noah, my partner, about where I grew up, he's like, where did you grow up and how did you get out of there? I'm like, well, it looked pretty normal on the outside, but I had this achievement junkie that was like, you're not going to get stuck here. We're going to get you out of here. So she was the one who made sure I was the top student. She was the one who made sure that I got into college, that I, climbed up the corporate ladder. And so for a while, she actually protected me from that fear of getting stuck in a place that I wasn't meant to be. And she also kind of teamed up with my rejection queen who, just felt unloved. And the way that she got love was by being recognized for her achievements. So when I published that first book, and really actually it's been since the divine feminine training, Elaine and everyone, since we sat in circle, and the reason I ended up in that circle was like, if I keep trying to do my life this way, I'm never gonna make it. Like I'll never make it up the next mountain. Like I won't make it. Like there's no way I can get my work into the world. I have to learn how to do it a different way. And coming out of corporate, I didn't know how to do it any other way. And so I'm like, I need the feminine. Where's the feminine? I need her. And, then I met Arylo, and then I'm in the circle. And then that really began a deeper journey into myself of, well, why do I need to be recognized? And where's that hole inside of me? Like, what was the genesis that created this inner mean girl in the first place? So I ended up, doing a lot, and I still do a lot of deep work around that. And that's where, as you go into the deeper levels, the priestess work, once you've gotten to the base work, the deeper work with the priestessing really helps you go even deeper. But you got to get through these first layers, first. And then, so once you have that understanding of, okay, this is where they came from. This is what motivates them. This is the behavior that shows up. It's from them. And to expect that they're going to show up in times of stress, or when you're stretching yourself, and you know how to deal with them. So you're changing in the moment, you're changing and shifting that channel. And then at the same time, the second piece, which is the second part of the book, is gotta create a relationship with your inner wisdom. Have to be like this with her and really follow that inner wisdom. She's your best friend. She's your sacred guide, because your inner mean girl won't give up her job unless she trusts that your inner wisdom is going to take it. That's the only way you can get her to leave up her job. So you have to do both at the same time. And then once you can get that to enough of a place and you're shifting it in the moment, that's when she takes a new job. And like my comparison, me and Patty, she doesn't show up hardly at all. She showed up when this book started, during this book launch. Maybe she got me for 30 minutes before I knew she was there. She didn't take me out for 3 months. She took me out for 30 minutes.
Right. And that's the beautiful part, right? Is as we identify these archetypes, these different faces of how our inner mean girls show up, we're able to actually be in relationship with them. Because this is the thing, is you can't just get rid of any part of you. Like that's clear. And I know this is, what I'm teaching within the archetypal work that I'm doing, with all the 13 faces of the divine feminine that I work with from, Ariel's system, is essentially we're looking to transform the energy. We're looking to actually transform it. And the biggest transformation comes through loving. right? That's the key ingredient. And I think that that's what your work does so beautifully and in such, a lighthearted way. But as you said, with what are really core, serious, deep issues, because ultimately these are the issues that you're speaking about. These inner mean girls can absolutely sabotage and ruin our lives on a very deep level because they're so entrenched, because we don't even know that they're there. We're not even aware that they're operating. So I know that your book and this system that you've been developing over these last few years is absolute gold mine. It's so precious as a way into accessing and coming to know these parts of ourselves, and actually having a system, as you said, these 7 steps of where you go from getting to know to actually transforming her job. Like there's a whole process that I'm guessing there's chapters on in each of those in the book, right? That go into depth with questions and exercises and all of this. And I glanced through, I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing, but I know your work so well. And I loved the combination of how you've put the stuff together, how you've made it really experiential and really tangible with really deep exercises, but also some invitations to really stretch ourselves and have some fun with this too. And I think that combination is so important, because I believe that spiritual work is deep and profound, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's always serious. In fact, seriousness is actually probably one of the inner mean girls, right? There could be an overly serious inner mean girl who's not letting you have any fun.
Oh yeah, she loves to steal. The perfectionist archetype is a very good Joyce.
Oh, none of us have that one, darling. We still don't have that.
That's the one I currently tested the highest on in the quiz. I'm like, I've never really had one, and now I'm like, okay, I reformed 5. Here's another piece I get to.
Right?
But it's been great, because it's like, by knowing that that's the one that's up for me the most right now, as I've been going through this book release and getting the work out into the world, I know she's there. And the way the perfection shows up for me is I'll want to just give so much to make it the best that it can be. Right. And so I'll give 120%, but then I'm really only getting 80% in return, 80% of the energy, 80% of the money, 80% of the things I need, the resources. And this happens to us all the time as women. And then we feel resentful, and then we don't have what we need because our giving and our receiving are out of whack.
Right.
And so that's where our inner mean girls can make us overgive and overwork. And then we're like, but we just give all that energy, all that effort. And then we look at our challenge and we're like, there's not enough in there to drink.
That one I think is really powerful to name. And I know that we're not alone in naming this. So if you're watching this and that resonates for you, I think that that's an epidemic. That one in itself is this feeling of needing to give more, from the need to be perfect, but also from the need to be loved, which is really the one that's underneath all of this, right? Is that our desire to be loved and our belief that we're not loved or not lovable fuels so much of this. So I know your whole ethos in life, your whole message in life is for us to love ourselves more fully. It's around self-love. That's what Christine's known for. It's what she's been walking the path of. So I want to just have all of my sisters here know how they can find your book and what's happening around the launch, because I know there's things happening that they might want to join in. So tell us, what can we look forward to?
Well, all of you are invited, and your inner mean girls are invited to play. So you can bring them along, your inner wisdoms too. You can find out more about the book at innermeangirlbook.com. So it's innermeangirlbook.com. And Amy and I are big believers in really supporting people to not just get a book, but to actually have support. So with the book, you also get access to an inner wisdom kit that has meditations that actually help you go back to the genesis of your inner mean girl and find out why she's there. Helps you retune, your station from fear into loving truth. So there's a whole bunch of meditations and visualizations and worksheets and fun stuff, pictures of people's altars. Like it's a super fun kit that we put together. And then just depending on when you also get the book, there's other awesome things that are on there as well. So go to innermeangirlbook.com. And actually, we're also doing a jumpstart workshop. So we're wanting to gather women together in virtual circle and in person. And it will also be video. It'll be taped. So even if you can't be there live, which is live cast on April 11th, you'll also be able to get the recording later. So everyone that gets a copy of the book will get that as well.
So go to that web page, and it'll be here in this email, so you'll be able to access it today. they can find out all this information there, the events, the book itself, et cetera, et cetera.
And the quiz. Yeah, and the quiz is there too. The quiz is actually at innermeangirlquiz.com or innermeangirl.com.
And so I'm going to encourage all of you to take the quiz. And the reason for this is because it's so, you know, you could say that Christine and our work is coming from the same basis. We're just looking at it through different lenses, and it's going to be really useful to continue in deepening with any of the archetypal work to actually be able to name these inner mean girls and to find these other pieces of energy. And I just love that you put a quiz together. I find that that's one of the greatest access points, right? It's like we all love to take a quiz to find out about what our star sign is or our Enneagram type. Well, now you can take the quiz on what your inner mean girl is and type that and be able to have a hook to do that work. And like you said, I think it's fascinating, Christine, that, you know, you worked on 5 inner mean girls and then you retook the quiz, and now another one that wasn't there before has popped up to the surface, which really shows us that there is no end to our excavation, right? We're in process. And, you know, we just sort of unearthing, we get the top layer and then we go to a next layer and we get to discover and continue to discover how these mechanisms work within ourselves. And I love that. I love that you're still on the journey after all these years.
Yes, I'm a walking, talking self-love experiment.
I can vouch for that.
Sure. I don't think, well, because self-love is not, it's not something that you achieve, you know, it's something that you practice every day. And, I'm my MBA, like, this is not like, you know, like I'm a marketing MBA person. This was like never what I thought I would, you know, like what I would give my life to. And, you know, I meet people a lot. They're just like, well, I love myself. And I'm like, really? Because you just told me you're working like gazillions of hours a week and you don't have any time for fun. You know, there's just all these ways that we don't even understand that we're not loving ourselves. And I just can't think of anything that's a more valuable currency than love. And I know that, you know, when you look at people that are, you know, as successful as we would look at someone like an Oprah or Elizabeth Gilbert, and they were just on Super Soul Sunday together talking about their inner mean girls. And then they felt this way, you know, Oprah about her body and Elizabeth Gilbert thinking like, you know, she was just, this was never going to happen again. She had lived the best life she could. And that it's like, you all, like, we don't change this inside of us, and then it's happening in our girls. So this is the other thing. It starts as young as 6 years old, right? So whether we're mothers like ourselves, two leaguers, or we're goddess mothers, or we're just in relationship to children, we have to be the example of what that looks like to come from a place of self-love and loving truth, right? It's not just about, oh, honey, everything's fine. You know, sometimes her inner wisdom's like, yeah, you got to get your shit together. But she would say, you know, like, yeah, that's distracting you. And let's focus over here because you deserve it. Your inner mean girl will say, get your shit together. Your inner wisdom will be like, yeah, that's distracting you. You deserve more. That's the difference of motivating, ding, 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 inner wisdom, motivating yourself from self-love instead of criticism and judgment. And, you know, I'll just say one other thing. So I know, Kalila, you and I are both a big proponent of sisterhood and circles and supporting each other. And I don't really think that we can move through this without being able to talk about it with other women. And so by able to say, I can call up my friend and be like, I am under serious inner mean girl attack. Like, and this is what's happening. It gives me a context to be able to talk to her about. And then she can reflect back to me what I can't do for myself in that moment.
Exactly. And that's the empowerment right there, you know, and to be able to do that in relationship with another sister. I mean, we all know there's a tremendous power in us being in a circle of sisters together and receiving the reflections from each other, but also having a place and a language. I mean, really, what I think is so brilliant about the work that you've been doing is you've given it a very concrete, accessible language that we can enter into this process with, so that we have a catchphrase, right? Oh, I'm having an inner mean girl attack. And we all, you know, if we've read the book or we've come to one of your workshops or whatever, we know what that means. And we're able to have some tools, really practical tools that we can actually use to reform, to change, to transform through that love. So I'm excited for this legacy of work that you're putting out there, honey. And I love that you've already been so helpful to so many thousands of women and so supportive. And I think the fact that you're launching this out there is just beautiful. And I'm highly encouraging all of you, my sisters, if this sounds like it could be helpful to you, to visit Christine's website and to pick up a copy of the book and to be involved, to take the quiz and to start to use this. And I'd love to check in with you all and hear how you're doing around it, because I will be going to take the Inner Mean Girl quiz.
Awesome.
I'm going to let you know, Christine, which one.
I know. I want it because then I can support you. Then you can call me up and be like, oh my God, she's on the scene.
I know. She's running rampant.
But the good news is that this is the other thing you can celebrate too, because she shows up when you stretch yourself. And so you're breaking through something. And it's like, great.
That's actually a great point, is when we have an inner mean girl attack, to really be able to see it, right, as an opportunity, because that's what it is. It's an opportunity for us to look at what's really happening, and rather than getting lost in that land, actually having some tools to hook our way out. Literally, it's like, okay, where's the ladder? Give me the ladder. I need to get out of here. So I love that you're doing this. Thank you so much, sweetheart. And it's been a joy to get to see you. And I hope and I look forward to being able to see more of you over the summer. It's going to be lovely.
Yes, it'll be great to
my dear one. Many blessings. And to all of you who've been watching, you'll find all the details on the bottom of the page, how to find Christine's book, and highly encourage it. And I'm just sending you all so, so much love. Thank you for being here. Mwah. Bye, my love.
Bye.